Hello and welcome to our junior string class video. Today we're going to be looking a bit more detail about time signatures and how to actually put those onto our string instruments when we're playing in music. Rather than just being a mathematical thing, we actually sort of how to bring them alive and change the techniques that we're using when we're playing our string instruments. But first we need to do some warm-ups. So you can't see my feet, but can you get your feet hip width apart, and you're just going to roll up onto your toes. Try not to let your ankles roll out. My head's going out of shot. And back again, and up onto your toes, and back again. Lovely. Lift up your toes and try and put your weight through the balls of your toes and the heel of your toes, and just rock in little circles with your toes up in the air and feel yourself being grounded through your feet. Those are your roots from those balls going right through to the ground and securing you on the spot. Okay, drop your toes down and just bend your knees really gently. Now when you do this before you practice, you can put on some funky music, but because this is going on YouTube, I'm not allowed to use other people's music unless I have to get permission. Right, so we're just bending our knees, loosening them up, so we're still rooted through our feet, but our knees are nice and loose and unlocked, and we can swing our arms. You can go a bit more crazy than I'm doing. I just don't want to knock over my whiteboard. Okay, and then we tuck in our hip bones. So we don't, the temptation, especially for cellists as well, when you're sitting, and violinists when you play, is to stick your bum out and your weight goes forwards. So we need to tuck our bottoms under, so feet nice and rooted, knees nice and things, and then just tuck your bottom under and keep your hips, the bottom of your ribs down. So we try and make the distance between our hips and our ribs. This bit is our trunk of our tree. So we've got loose knees, rooted feet, trunk nice and strong, but not tense, okay? And then the arms need to be nice and floppy. So we're keeping our shoulders still, not bringing them up, and just letting our arms swing. And the swing's being initiated from the knees. Okay, lovely. And then I want you to swing into a playing posture. Cellists, even though you're not sitting down, you can go into your playing posture, and violinists into your playing posture. Okay, swing and play. Swing, swing and play. And then just bounce in your playing posture. Imagine you've got those big yoga balls underneath each arm. And so you should be feeling strong here, bouncy in your knees, rooted through your feet, and your arms are sort of heavy and relaxed. Great. Okay, we're going to shrug our shoulders up and drop them down, up to our ears and down, and then just free the neck. We have a noble neck going left to right and left to right. And it's really good when you're playing to always just check that your neck and your jaw isn't gripping too much. And then we're just going to warm up our fingers, flick little raindrops off them. This is really working this bit of your arms as well. And then we're going to grab bits of air and bring those in. So we're just warming up all the fine muscles in our fingers and all the big muscles in our arms that we're going to be needing to play. And as well working on a bit of good posture. Okay, fab. So we're all ready. Let's grab our instruments. Just your instruments, not your bows. So cellos, so you can sit down, and basses, you can get ready, and violins and violas, we're going to go up into playing position. Now, often when I do this, I take off my shoulder rest so that I can feel my instrument on my collarbone, and I don't get used to gripping, but that's something to talk about with your teacher. So if you prefer to keep it on, that's fine. So violin goes up and onto your collarbone. Cellists, make sure that your sitting position, the weight is through your feet and you're sitting on your hips. Okay. Upper strings, you're going to hold your violin here with the bowing hand, so you're not worrying about dropping the instrument, because what we don't want is this shoulder to get involved. Okay. We want to be moving from underneath and keeping that joint nice and free so the arm doesn't lock, just like we were doing in the warm-up. Okay, so violins go onto the collarbone, cellists, weight goes into your feet. Support the instrument how you feel comfortable, and we're just going to stroke the neck of our instrument. So upper strings, the thumb comes on the edge of your, and just going up and down the neck. The wrist is staying passive, I don't want to see any of this. We're just stroking, and cellists, the thumb goes at the back of the neck and you're just going to stroke up and down. I want you to imagine that your thumb is stroking really beautiful velvety ears of a rabbit or something just beautiful like there's velvet on the edge of your neck. So we're going to up and down. Okay, now we need to work out how we're going to get round the body of the instrument. So we go up and then the elbow comes in. For upper strings, cellos you come down and then elbow goes up to get round the body of the instrument. So that's all we're just going to do. So you do in and round, back. So in and elbow go back. And do you see how my wrist is staying not locked, but it's passive. It's not doing anything at the moment. It's just keeping a nice straight line. Okay? Right, the next move is we're going to go all the way to the top of our instrument. So we're going to go in, elbow comes round, and then this is where the wrist gets involved, and the wrist bends. Now when your wrist bends, it takes your hand all the way up to the top, but none of this should be locked or tight or turning your body into all sorts of positions. Cellos, you're going to come down, elbow, and then actually your thumb comes off and you slide your whole hand, whoosh, right down here. Okay? You're not going to play any notes, we're not making any sound, so don't feel sort of tight or worried about it. We're just getting to know our instruments. So, up the neck, elbow, and either wrist or slide your whole hand down for the cellos and the basses. And then wrist comes back, that's really important. Wrist comes back, elbow, slide back. Slide, elbow, wrist, wrist, elbow, slide. And then we're going to chin. You can keep doing it in little sections, but the aim is to not get it jerky. Ooh, ooh, ooh. We're going to go up, round, and then back. And then round, and then back. Once more. Fabulous. Okay, next exercise. I want your hand at the end of the neck, nearest the body. So cellists, you're going to be down here. Violinists and violas, you're going to be up here. We rest the neck of the violin just on our thumb so that we've got, again, a really, see, my shoulder's not getting involved. This arm's able to swing nice and loosely. And we're moving give yourselves a little wave. Cellos, give yourselves a little wave, okay? We're moving from our knuckles, okay? So we've got little springs in the back of our hands. And we're just going to tap your lowest string. Oops, Daisy. It's going to be interesting. Tap your lowest string, and then move your elbow level, tap the next string up, tap your next string up, move your elbow back, moving back. And you hear I'm getting a nice little tappy sound. And then we start, so we're just freeing up our elbow so that it can move to all the levels that our fingers are needed. And the reason we're not doing this down here and we're doing it halfway up our instrument is that actually that's a really balanced place for your arm to be. We haven't got any pressure. Okay, lovely, fab. So we've warmed up our hand, we've warmed up our bowing arm, our shifting arm. Let's get our bows involved. So here I'm going to settle myself about halfway. Cellists, you can just rest your hand on your instrument. There's no need to go right up to playing position with your left hand while we're working on here. We just need everything to be nice and relaxed. Right, so we're going to find the balance point of our bow. Now the balance point of your bow, there's a really cool trick you can do. Do this over some carpet, not over any tiled floor. And if you move your fingers in from either end of the bow, see, is this, there we go. Should, there we go, meet at the balance point. Nifty, huh? Okay, have another go. So put the hair towards you, fingers at either end, and move them in. And you'll find one moves and then the other moves and then they sort of get stuck. But they should meet at exactly the balance point, and see if you can just make your bow act like a seesaw. Now notice this isn't in the middle of your bow because you've got a lot of weight here. And that's something we have to always think about when we're playing, how to sort of accommodate the fact that our bow isn't exactly in the middle. So remember the spot that you had, that's your balance point, and go onto your D string or your middle string, so your G or your D or your A or your D for the violins, and just have it at the balance point. And what I want you to do is create a really lovely bow cuddle with your bow hold, okay? So do you see how I'm not gripping the bow? I'm doing exactly the same as it was on my fingers. The bow is acting like a seesaw, and my hands are really just sort of very gently guiding it, but the whole weight of the bow is on the violin. Okay, so you need to tap your thumb. Cellos, you can do the same. Okay, tap your middle two fingers. Cellos, your fingers flops over. Violinist, ours is on top. Tap your little finger in the position it should be, and tap your first finger. So what we're doing is we're just checking that there's no tension in our bow cuddle. Remember, we're guiding the bow, we're not gripping the bow, okay? And then we can do some silent rainbow bows. Now, upper strings, that's what we're aiming for, is that our elbow, our wrist, and our knuckles are all in line, and they move together as a team. Okay, you get a nice view of my armpit. And as we want to go to the lower strings, we go down, and to the, so if we go to the G string, our elbow goes up, and to the E string, the elbow goes down. Cello's the same, so the elbow level is what's going to be determining how you get to your string. So again, just like we move this shoulder, we're now moving this shoulder, making sure everything's nice and loose. And we're not trying to make any sound yet, because we don't want to be tensing up just to make a good sound. We're just really looking, if you can get a mirror to look in, and just, we don't want this. Okay, we want it nice and balanced. So we're at the balance point and our arm is balanced. Just silent rainbow bows. Okay, right, all the joints are warmed up. Fabulous. So next thing we're going to do is, sometimes when you're playing on your own a lot, especially having lessons remotely, it's really hard to make a big sound. So I'm going to put my shoulder rest back on when I can find it. Here we go. So we were talking in the summer school a little bit about where you play on the string. So close to the bridge, or over the fingerboard, or somewhere in the middle. And in our pieces, often we tend to just hedge our bets and go for the middle. But when we're doing our scales and our warm-ups, it's a really good idea to sort of test yourself. And like we explored the whole of our instrument with our hands, we're going to try and explore all of this area with our bow and experiment with what we have to do with the bow speed and the bow pressure to make a nice sound, or to make an interesting sound. It doesn't always have to be nice. So something that I've been talking to some of my string players about is next to the bridge is like your deep end of the swimming pool, and it's really rich. And it can feel a little bit scary playing at the deep end, but if you practice enough, you can dive down deep and get a really sort of exciting, interesting sound there. The middle lane is where you can sort of be, you play around a bit, but you've got a bit more, you're able to do a bit more without the sound going a bit funny. And then we've got the shallow end, where sometimes it just feels safer to play at the shallow end because you're not really fancying sort of using, but sometimes if we're at the shallow end, you don't get all of the sounds that you want. But you can also get interesting sounds up here, but you have to choose to go there rather than just go there because you're feeling scared of these bits. Okay, so we're choosing deep, middle, or shallow. So that's what I'm talking about when I say go to the deep end. Right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to practice doing some open string deep end bows, but we're also going to add in a little bit of finger play. So I want you to look at your instrument sideways if you're in upper strings, or just sort of downwards if you're a cello or a bass. Go halfway up your string. So it's not halfway up the fingerboard, it's halfway up the string from the bridge, from the nut to the bridge, where it's attached here to here. So we look for halfway, and you should have a really strong halfway harmonic. Okay, so what we're going to do on the open D, okay, we're going to go, actually let's start at the balance point, get a nice relaxed bow hold, and we're going to go at the deep end, really, really slow bow. And then we're going to put our finger really gently, keep the bow going, and on the halfway harmonic. Now you don't have to join with me, you can put your fingers off and on as often as you want. And what this is doing is teaching our right hand to be quite strong, because you have to get a really quite strong bow to get a harmonic to work. But our left hand needs to be really light, because if we make it too strong, we're going to crack, we're going to lose the harmonic, okay? So, really strong right hand, right at the deep end. Now you notice I'm doing a really slow bow, okay? At the heel, the weight is on my little finger. When I get to the point, the weight is on my top finger. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. We've done it in other videos. So we're going to go slow. And you can even crack the note a bit, that's fine. And then experiment with putting your finger on and off at the halfway point. But try and keep the weight in the bow. And keep the bow slow, even if your finger is moving faster. Okay, right. So we've now divided the string in half. That's sort of the area that we're working on. We're going to do more on that next time. I'm just going to draw you a picture. So let's imagine that this is our D string, and that's our halfway harmonic here. So this is going to be our low D, and this is going to be our high D. If we pressed our finger down, we'd actually get a full proper high D note. So it's an octave gap up our string. Now if we wanted to play a major scale, we know this scale pattern. A lot of you know it in solfa. So we've got, if D is do, we've got re, and then a gap for mi, and then fa is close, and then so, and then la, and then T is close, and then we go to our top do, okay? So we've got do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti, do. Now, we're not going to do one finger scales today, but that is something you can experiment with a little bit. You found your halfway harmonic, and you can slide your hand up one string and play a major scale, knowing that you have a close gap here and a close there, and all the others have little gaps in between them. Now when we play a string instrument, before we start moving a hand all the way up the violin or the cello, or viola or bass, we need to split that scale in half to cross over two strings, which is the first scales that we learn. So if I do a little snip here, then we've got this, the notes that we had, so D, we've got E, F sharp, G, and then these notes are A, B, C sharp, and our top D. Okay, so if I cut this and we use our open A, then our scale fits over our two strings. So we've got A, B, C sharp, and D. Okay, I know you all know this, you've all played a D major scale hopefully, but it's really important. Sorry, the drawing's a little bit wonky, but these should be level with each other. It's really important to understand how the major scale pattern in a big block is cut in half and split over our two strings. Okay, so we still have do, D is do, E is re, F sharp is mi, close for G is fa, and then so is A, la is B, D is C sharp, and then it's close for top do. Alright, now with our, I'm just going to do violin, viola and cello fingering today. For violins, you have open D, first finger, second finger and third finger close. Open A, first finger, second finger and third finger close. For the cellos, it's slightly different. I'll put yours in the middle. You have open finger, open string, first finger, third finger, then your fourth finger. Okay? And it's the same for the A string. Open string, first finger, third finger, fourth finger. Okay? So just as you're playing through with me, know that your fingers are going to be different. Okay, so D major scale. We're going to carry on with our, let's just do it all together using medium depth. So we're going to go sort of halfway between the bridge and the fingerboard, middle strokes. I'm going to do 2 beats each. So we'll go 2, 2, okay. Off we go. 2, 2. Okay, so we've all remembered the finger pattern. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of practice with the bow, using the deep end bowing that we've been doing, and I'd like you to do it in harmony with me. So I'm going to be holding each note for 8 beats with my slow bows, okay? I'm going to play my D and my E, and then when I get to my F sharp, you're going to join in, and you'll be ending up playing in harmony with my notes, so it's be easier for you to tune, okay? So don't start yet, just let me get my first notes going. So 3, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep waiting. 3, 2, 3. Get 4. Get ready. 5, 6. Now you start on your D. D. 5, 6, 7, 8. E. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. And then go up to your top D. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, open A. 5, 6, 7, 8. G. 5, 6, 7, 8. F sharp. 5, 6, 7, 8. E. 5, 6, and open D. D. Lovely, really good job. So if you're struggling with the bows being quite as long as that, that's something that you can ask your teacher about in terms of making sure how you save the bow and how you change the weight of your hand over the things. Right, so time signatures. The first thing we need to know when we're going to do time signatures is what each of the actual numbers means. So, in grade 1 theory, so in your time signature, you have 2 boxes. Well, you don't have boxes, but you have 2 numbers that you'll see next to, let's give ourselves a viola clef today. Okay, so next to the clef on the stave, you've got all your lines here. You're going to see 2 numbers, okay? The bottom number tells you what you're going to have to count, so what type of notes you are counting, and your top number tells you how many, okay? Now, in grade 1 things, and a lot of the first pieces we see, we only ever see a 4 in this bottom box here, okay? And that 4 is like a code number to tell us that we're counting in tars, okay, or crotchets. And then we could have in this top box, we could say there's 2 crotchet beats in a bar, or we could say that there's 3 crotchet beats in a bar, or we can say that there is 4 crotchet beats in the bar. Sometimes you can have 5, but those 3 are the 3 sort of time signatures that we're going to be dealing with a lot. So 2, 4, 3, 4, and 4, 4. Okay. Now, to understand how these code numbers work, it's important to actually be able to play and understand a rhythm tree. So I'm going to draw you a rhythm tree. Here is your semi-breve, or a 4 or. You've got minims or 2 woos. You've got crotchets or tars, and you've got TTs or quavers. We're not going to go any further than that today. Okay, now these last 4 beats, 2 beats, 1 beat, and a half beat. Now I'm going to use a different colour, and we're going to use our red one, and these are going to be our code numbers. So how many heads of a note, how many blobs have we got in our tree? We've got 1 on this line, so the code number here is 1. We've got 2 on this line, so the code number is 2. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, so the code number here is 4. And we've got, if I was going to draw the middle in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. So the code numbers that tell us which thing we're going to have in this bottom box depends on how many blobs or heads of notes we end up with our rhythm tree. So next lesson we're going to be talking about 2s and 8s. Ooh. But today we're just dealing with 4s. Okay, so we're going to have a go at playing our rhythm tree. Let's have a look. I'm going to come this side. Ooh. Okay, so to play our rhythm tree, we're going to pick a D major arpeggio. Okay, so let's just practice that together. So a D major arpeggio is the notes number 1, number 3, number 5, and then back to number 1, or the top note of our scale. So for D major, it would be a D. So just find a D with me. Then an F sharp, so it's either a second finger for upper strings or a third finger for cellos. And then open A. And a top D. And just make sure with your open D that you're nicely in tune and should feel it ringing. And then open A. Okay, so we're going to start on a down bow. Our semi-breve, our 4 or is going to be a whole bow, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to use half bows for the minims, halfway and halfway. Then we're going to use a quarter bow for the tars at the tip, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to use a tiny bit of bow right at the tip. So don't let your arm come behind, stretch out, and we're going to go 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and then we're going to do the whole thing back the other way. Okay, so follow me. We're going to do it through twice. So don't worry, first time just see if you can keep up with me. Second time you should know what you're doing. Okay, so this time we're going to start right at the heel of the bow. Tap your middle fingers, tap your first finger, tap your little finger. Feel when you take your little finger off, feel the weight of the bow wanting to flop. Okay, we'll start on an open D. So 1, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. F sharp. 1, half a bow. A's, ta, 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 top D. Stay on this note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Open A. Half of the bow. Half of the bow. At the heel. Quarter bows. Feel the weight in your little finger. Right at the heel. Okay, now it should feel a bit, sometimes it can feel a bit weird being right at the heel of the bow, somewhere we don't play very often. We're in the middle lane for this one, so that we're not having to worry too much about our bow speed. So let's have another go. Exactly the same. Up the arpeggio, down the arpeggio, right at the heel, tap your fingers, tap your thumb, tap your little finger. Make sure your fingers aren't up here, they're flopping over your bow. Off we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2. And then little bows. Really use your elbow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half bow. Crotchets. Quarter bows at the heel. Then little bows right at the heel. And you see when I'm right at the heel of the bow, it's a bit of a crunchy sound. My fingers just get nice and relaxed. And they're just helping with that movement right at the heel of the bow. Brilliant. Okay, so we played our rhythm trees, so we understand how they feel in our body as well as what they look like on a page. So now we're going to do a little bit of rhythm work, turning how we would play a piece in 2/4, 3/4 and 4/4, and how those different, we call them meters. A meter is sort of how you count and you feel the sort of pulse of a piece. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Should have brought a cloth. Okay, so I'm going to do a rhythm on the middle of the board, okay, and it's going to go ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti. You don't have to put in the blobs, you can just have the lines. And then we've got two woo, ti, 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 ta, ta. Okay, so that's my rhythm. Sorry, I'm not very good at writing straight on my whiteboard today. So if you were given that and we've decided that this rhythm is going to, actually let's just clap it first. And we're just going to keep all of the claps exactly the same sort of emphasis. So off we go. Ti, ta, ti, ti, two, woo, ti, 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 ta, ta. Okay. Now, if I put this in front of it, that tells me that there's 2 crotchet beats or 2 tar beats in every bar. So now I need to put in my bar lines. I've got 1 tar beat, and then these TTs count together up to 1 beat. So I then have another tar beat and a pair of TTs. So that's 2 beats in that bar. This lasts 2 beats, this minim, so I've got to put a bar line here. This minim lasts 2 beats. T, 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 that's for 2 beats. And then tar, tar. And then we're going to do a double bar line at the end because it's a very short piece to show it's the end of the piece. Okay, so now let's clap it again, and I'm going to count you in 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2. Ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, two, woo, ti, 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 ta, ta. Now, feels a bit unfinished because it's a 6-bar phrase and we tend to be used to 8-bar phrases, but bear with me. Okay, now hopefully you noticed that I did something slightly different with my clapping that time. I emphasised the first beat of every 2 beats, okay? So that made it feel as if it was in 2. So have another go clapping with me and do exactly the same. When you have a strong beat, like a heartbeat above it, we're going to emphasise it. So 1, 2, ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, two, woo, ti, 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 ta, ta. Okay, now we're going to put that on our instruments. And we're just going to do it on an open string first. Now, we've done a bit of bow division when we were doing our rhythm tree. So let's start at our balance point, okay? And for the tars, we're probably going to use to our singing point. Balance point to singing point, middle third of the bow. TTs, we're probably going to use half of that. Yeah? And then for the two woos, or the minims, we want to go... We want to be using a little bit more bow, okay? So make sure you're not splashing around with the fast notes or using tiny bows for the minims. We want to use more bow for the longer notes. Okay, so let's have a go. Off we go. Ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, two, ti, 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 ta, ta. Now that time I did it fairly flat. Now what we're going to do is try and put a little bit of emphasis, like we did with the claps, on the strong beats of the bar. And the way we can do that with our bow is either to press a little harder or to move it a bit faster. Okay? Or let's experiment with a bit of both of those. Actually, let's just do it one at a time. So let's just do pressing a bit harder on each of the first beats of the bar. So 1, 2, press, 2, 2, press, 2, press, 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 press. So that worked, that gave us an emphasis. Now this time we're not going to press so much with our first finger, we're going to just speed up the bow at the start of the note and see if that gets the same effect. Off we go. Fast, 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 fast. Okay? And actually, in real pieces of music, we probably do a little bit of both. Okay? So we're going to do it once more, and I want you to pick a note from the D major arpeggio we did. So it's either a D, or an F sharp, or an A, or a top D. Okay, so pick one now. You're going to keep the same note all the way through. I'm going to do open D, and I want you to experiment with a bit of pressing and a bit of fastness with the bow and see what comes out. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, we're starting to sound like a piece of music. So we've done 2 beats in a bar. Let's now, 2 crotchet beats in the bar. Let's change the time signature. So I've now decided, last to say, if you have 2 beats in a bar, you call it duple time. A bit like Duplo, okay? So duo is 2, so duple time. We're going to skip one actually, and now we're going to do quadruple time. This is why people think music and maths often go together. Quadruple means 4. And these are a lot of the words we use in time signatures and rhythms often come up in your maths lessons. So we have 4 beats in every bar, 4 crotchet beats in every bar. So I'm going to get rid of this and rid of this. So now we've got 1 beat. These are half and half, so they add up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have half as many bars because we have double the beats in each bar. So these are now 4. So you see I've kept the strong beat at the start of each 4 bars. Let's just have a go at clapping a strong beat on every 4 beats, and I'm going to count you in for 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, two, two, ti, 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 ta, ta. Now, really, that's not quite how we play 4/4. What we tend to have is a really strong beat on the first beat of the bar, and then a little emphasis on this is first beat, second beat, third beat, fourth beat. We've got big emphasis on the first beat and a little emphasis, a little stronger bit on the here. So we're getting quite detailed here. We've got strong beat, little beat, strong beat, little beat. So we call that the half bar, halfway through the bar. So it's still quite a little bit like the 2/4, but we need to make sure that there's a difference between this strong beat and then this slightly different beat. So that's why we're doing it clapping. It's quite a lot to think about. I'm going to give you 4 in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, two, woo, two, woo. Ti, 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 ta, ta. Okay, so there's, you know, within what really simple rhythm, there's lots of different sort of dynamics and emphases that you use to sort of turn it into something that sounds more like a sentence or the way we talk, rather than a robot doing it. So now we're going to have a go just on the open D again. Let's have a go at pressing first. So when I say press, you slightly increase the weight of your arm, you slightly increase the weight of that first finger to get that emphasis. Let's just do it on the first beat of every foot. We're going to do it this one, and this one. Okay, so pressing first on an open D. 1, 2, 3, 4. Press, ta, ti, press, press. Okay, let's do exactly the same. We're ignoring these little hearts for the moment because it's a bit too much to think about, and we're going to do fast bows. Okay, so 3, 3, 4. Fast, fast, fast. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a combination of fast and press, and we're going to try and add our little extra bit in here. So we're not going to make them as big as these ones, but we're still going to give them a little bit of emphasis. So 3, 4, strong, strong. Okay, so we're really talking with our bow, trying to create the sort of how you would flow with your voice when you're talking to somebody. So now again, let's choose a note from our D major arpeggio. So either a D, an F sharp, an A, or a top D, and have a little conversation with me. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Lovely. Okay, so now we're going to do our last one. So we've had duple time, and we've had quadruple time. So the one we missed out is this one, the 3, 4. Okay. The difference between 2 in a bar and a 4 in a bar is sometimes really hard to hear because, as we said, like the half bar gets emphasised as well. So it's a bit trickier to tell the difference. The difference between 2 and 4 time and 3 time is really quite big, and that's something that you really need to show in your playing when you have a 3/4 piece or a thing that's in triple time. So we have 3 crotchet beats in a bar. It's called triple time. Tri being like a tricycle or a triangle, 3, okay. And we're going to divide this up into 3 beats. So 1, 2, so 1 beat, 2 beats, 3 beats. 1 beat, 2 beats and 3 beats because that's worth 2 beats. 1 beat and 2 beats because it's worth 2 beats, and 3 beats. 1 beat, 2 crotchet beats, 3 crotchet beats. Okay, so we've got 3 crotchet beats in each bar. Now if we go with the same theory that each first beat of the bar gets a little bit of emphasis, if we now clap, emphasising the first beat of every bar in our 3/4, the rhythm should suddenly feel quite different. So I'm going to count you in 3. 1, 2, 3. Ta, ti, ti, ta. Ti, ti, two, woo. Two, woo. Ti, 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 two, ta. I slightly missed the last one. Okay, so when we're doing 3 meter, it feels a bit like a waltz, and it's a boom, chick, chick, boom, chick, chick, ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, two, woo, ti, 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 ta, ta. Have a go with me. Boom, chick, chick, get this, and just your voice is doing the rhythm, your hands are doing the pulse. Boom, chick, chick, ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, two, woo, ti, 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 ta, ta. So it has a whole different feel, slightly more sort of sway and flowy than the sort of more marchy 2, 4 and thing, but it's exactly the same rhythm. We have just changed the meter, we've changed the time signature. So it just shows you how you really need to understand how these work on your instrument, because it really impacts how you play a piece of music. Okay, so let's go back to our open strings. This time we're just going to do emphasis. So you now know you can increase the speed of your bow, you can increase the pressure of your sort of on the string, a bit of the both to get that emphasis on the first beat of the bar. Let's do it a little bit slower. So 1, 2, 3. And the way to get more emphasis is to go light on the other 2 notes. Okay, let's try that once more. 1, 2, 3. Strong, light, light, strong, light, strong. I'm reading this rhythm backwards in the camera, so I'm sorry, I got that one wrong. Okay, well done. So this is the last thing we're going to do today. We're going to pick a note of a D major arpeggio. So don't do D, open D with me, so you get a nice harmony at home. So you can do top D and tune it to my open D, F sharp or A. Okay, so I'm going to count in 3 and the last thing we do today. 1, 2, 3. Brilliant, well done. So just to recap, we've done a body warm-up, we've done our arm warm-ups for both sides, but without making any sound, just to really get the physicality going. We've looked at experimenting with deep end bowing and light left hand, so being able to do 2 things at once. We've looked at how the major scale pattern gets chopped in half when it goes over our 2 open strings. We have looked at a rhythm tree and how that works on our bow in terms of using different bits of our bow and how that relates to a time signature to help you understand the code numbers. And then finally we've had one rhythm that we have divided up into duple time, triple time and quadruple time, and how putting the emphasis on the first beat of the bar with our playing really makes that rhythm sound totally different in the different meters. So well done, and I'll see you next time.